Okay, so we're moving on now. We've composited our image here. We've brought in trees, people, laid out the landscape, etc., brought in a sky. And what we need to do now is blend these elements together. You're going to see pretty clearly here in this render that, for example, these people here are much brighter and the light that is shining on them is of a different color than it is in the render here. These people just kind of got lucky. They're pretty good. Um, this guy is too dark. These people are too light. Also, the shadows are not affecting this guy in purple in the same way as it is in the scene. So those are just a couple examples of things that we need to fix. We might also sort of adjust the tones of these people. Their colors stand out quite dramatically in this image, and it's kind of distracting. Um, and we'll also match or sort of blend these rocks and the grass together, the color of the trees, all of that good stuff. So that's all going to be post-processing. I'm probably not going to do all of it here, but I'm just going to show you sort of the basics of how to do that and some little tricks that you can do to make it happen. So I guess the first thing we're going to do is this guy in purple is a good example of sort of someone that you bring into the render but doesn't match the lighting of the render. So the light that is striking on him for whenever this photo was taken of him isn't the same as the light that's in the render. So what we're going to do is we're just going to fix that with the levels adjustment layer, which is here, sort of these mountain peaks. And let's see which guy, purple guy, there we go. So what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna use this levels adjustment layer. So once I have our purple guy, I needed to expand this group to see him in here. But I'm going to select the purple guy layer, and I'm going to add in an adjustment layer, the levels adjustment layer. Of course, I only want the levels to affect him. So like I said before, we're going to use the clipping mask. So you just click on or select your adjustment layer, right click, create clipping mask, and now we're all set up to make some adjustments here. So probably what we need to do is make him a little bit brighter. Let's try that. So we'll make I guess what we want to do is make his front side brighter, the side that's facing the sun, make that brighter, and then we'll just leave the parts of him that are on the opposite side sort of the same tone as they are right now. So how we're going to do that, this is the levels tool. It's sort of an enhanced version of brightness and contrast, and this curves adjustment layer is an enhanced version of levels. So there's sort of this is like levels is like the intermediate tool and curves is the expert tool. Brightness and contrast is the novice tool. But essentially what you're looking at here is a graph that's showing the tones, dark and light tones, and showing sort of the quantities of those. So you can see most of the tones are in the middle range here. Then you have your dark tones, which are on the left, and the light tones, which are on the right. You also have this additional slider, which makes either all of the dark tones white, or it makes all of the white tones dark, depending on how you slide them. So I can just show that right now. If I move this black slider closer to the white, you can see that he's just getting white until all of him is completely white. And vice versa, if I slide this white one, the more that it gets to black, the more totally black that he becomes. So over here on the graph, this is really what we're going to be using. This is sort of the contrast element here. So if I slide this dark tone slider to the right, it's going to make all of the dark tones more dark. and him more dark as well. So you can kind of see how that's playing out. We're just essentially upping the contrast, but doing it in a little bit more methodical way. This middle tone, depending on which direction I move it, either left or right, is going to make the middle tones darker or lighter. So you can see how that's playing out as well as I move this slider. And of course, I'm sure you can guess if I move this light tone slider to the left, all of the light tones are going to stand out much more. So you can see how that's working as well. So usually you use these in tandem with each other, and we will sort of at the end, at the very, very end as a last step, we'll use the levels tool again here. But right now we just want to make this guy lighter entirely, and then we're going to use the layer mask, which you can probably see as soon as you put in an adjustment layer, there's a layer mask associated with it. We're going to use that layer mask to make sure that this levels tool is only affecting a portion of the guy. So let's make him a little bit lighter here. We're going to use these sliders. Like that. So that looks pretty good. You can see if I turn that off, you can see the difference that we've done here. So let me move this out of the way. So yeah, so we're going to use the layer mask now so that we get this side of him, of the guy, to be dark like the original image here, and then we'll leave the side facing the sun to be white. So basically we're just changing how the lighting is affecting him. That's the whole point of all of this right now. So we're going to use our paintbrush, right? And we're going to use black. And we're going to come in here and paint black. Make sure that we're on the layer mask. We're going to paint black, and you can start to see that we're going to add those shadows back in here. You want to paint black just on the areas that wouldn't have any sunlight touching them. So you can kind of see how that's taking effect here. You can follow the wrinkles in his shirt as well, sort of like that. So now you can see, if I turn this on and off, that only part of his body is lighter now, and we sort of blended it into the darker parts. So that is just making him look more like he actually belongs in this scene, that he's an original part of the scene. So we're going to do that to these people over here as well. The same thing, because they're pretty intense in their brightness. So we're going to adjust that. Again, we're going to expand our group. We're going to add the levels tool. You can see it has the layer mask already. We're going to right click, create clipping mask, so it's only affecting the layer with the people on them. And then what we're going to do this time is we want to sort of make them darker altogether, or we want to add shadows to them. Maybe not that much. Maybe something like that. And actually I'm going to flip them around here. Transform and flip. There we go. So now I can come in here on our layers mask for the levels tool, and I can use black this time. So I've made them darker, and I want to use the black color to and come along the side of them that's facing the sun. Do that. It takes a little bit of work sometimes to get this to look right. So So you can see here that we've just adjusted them a little bit, and they look a little bit more like they belong in the scene again. So you can do this to all of these people. You just use the levels tool and make their shadows stand out a little bit more. So that's sort of the first step of post-production, is essentially we're trying to blend all of these detailed elements together, and then at the end we'll do some macro adjustments and do that there. Another thing that we might want to do as well, actually, is to adjust the color of these people in terms of like the lighting that's affecting them. So we can use this color balance adjustment layer here to affect the colors that are, or to affect their colors here. So if we place that, again, make a clipping mask so we're only affecting the people. And if we adjust these color sliders around, obviously it's sunset, and so we want the lighting to be a more orangey color. You can see that, you know, we can really dramatically affect the color, but we just want to do minor adjustments here. A little bit more yellow and a little bit more red. So now it looks more like some evening light is hitting them, and we'll do the same for the purple guy. Oh, I forgot to do the clipping mask and it made everything yellow, so we'll do that. There we go. So just like that. Another thing you might want to do to help blend the people as well is you can adjust their overall opacity. This also kind of draws attention away from the people. If I set his opacity to 80, of course we can see that there's a person there, but he's not the center of attention. We can see past him and to see parts of the building. And also it helps blend the colors a little bit more because now we can see these other colors from the ground through him. So can do that there. I'm going to adjust now some of the landscaping. So these trees I've grouped together. I can use adjustment layer on the group as well as the individual layer. To affect multiple multiple layers at the same time. So if I want to make all these trees are really green, and maybe I want to make it look sort of like fall colors, or just make the colors blend a little bit better, I can use the color balance. Yes, I can also use this hue and saturation adjustment layer. Yeah, and it's sort of like this gradient panel here. If I click on that guy, of course make a clipping mask, I can adjust a couple things here. The lightness and darkness, of course, is sort of like exposure. You probably won't need to mess with that. You can change the saturation, which either makes it extremely colorful or have no color at all. And you can also adjust the hue, which is going to sort of manipulate these colors to be different colors. So I can slide this around and you can sort of see what's going to happen here. Make it more blue. Can make it more yellow, sort of this reddish color, pink, whatever. So I'm just going to make it a little bit more yellow so that it matches the scene a little bit more. You can kind of see how that's taking effect. It's not as distracting now as it was when it was green. It matches the scene much better. Okay. And for the gravel path, I might do much the same thing here. I'm going to use a levels tool. So, and probably the saturation as well, hue and saturation, to sort of blend this a little bit better. It's really bright right now, so you can make it a little darker, the same tone as the grass. And we can use hue and saturation as well here, sort of take some color away from it so it's not so distracting, or we can make it more of a reddish color here. Something like that. And we can change the opacity as well. Maybe that will help blend it together. It looks like it did. That looks a little bit better. Okay. So now we're getting somewhere. It's looking a lot better. Can do the same thing to the background as well, the sky. We can adjust some colors. Another trick with the color balance, just as I had showed you guys the color range select before to get rid of the background of the original render, we can use color range select as well, and it's really useful in tandem with the color balance. So we can affect only certain colors in this sky possibly. I want to, in this instance, make the blues in this sky a bit different. So what I can do is turn all of these other layers off. So we just have our background image. And then with the color balance, I can select the layer mask here. Or actually, no. You want to have the background selected for the color range select. So you'll go up to select when you've also selected your background. Do color range, and you can just click on the blue colors that are in the sky here. Use the fuzziness to sort of define the accuracy. I think that looks pretty good. And yeah, so what I've selected are all the blues. So what I want to do is fill the rest of it with black, right? Everything that's not blue. So since I've selected all the blues, I need to select the opposite thing, which is everything else that's not blue. So how you can do that is if you click on the lasso tool and you come into the workspace here on the background image, if you just right click anywhere, it doesn't matter as long as it's on the image. If you right click and do select inverse, you have selected everything now that is not blue. So now what we can do is on our layer mask, we can go to edit, fill with black, and now it will only affect the things that are blue. So you can see here when I move the sliders around, it's only affecting the blue tones in this image. So now I'm going to turn all of these back on because really the whole point is to match sort of the scene, the colors of the scene here. I'm just going to make it a little more red and blue, or maybe a little more yellowy. Yeah, that looks a little better. You guys can mess around with that. We'll add another adjustment layer here. You can adjust the brightness of the sky as well. You can end up with something like this. So that's kind of the basics to post-processing or post-production. Yeah, you know, you come in, you use these adjustment layers to sort of make all of the composited elements fit together, right? We adjusted the color of the trees to match the scene, the sky to match the scene, the people and their lighting to match the scene as well. And that's sort of the whole idea behind that, is to make everything match together and look alike. So now that we've handled sort of these composited elements, now we can look at the render as a whole and start to do some post-production there. So I'll just make a group for that. And we're just going to fill in some adjustment layers. You might want to mess with the levels tool here. We can start to enhance the contrast of the entire image. Of course, this all sort of depends on what you're trying to do. You can see that there. We might also mess with the saturation. Maybe we want the whole thing black and white, or you can bring out the colors more. You can change all of the colors, just as I was showing before. Another thing you can do is use the color balance, of course. Sort of adjust the color levels that are happening here. And another thing to note too is with all of these adjustment layers, you can adjust the opacity as well. So for example, let's see, if I wanted to affect how much this levels is affecting the photo, I can change its opacity. You can see as I change this number between 10 and 100 that it's affecting it more and more the closer I get to 100%. So you can also do that as well. And yep, that's generally it for post-processing. Yeah, so you adjust the elements, the composited images, and then you adjust the overall image as well. Just some final touches to really get your image to look realistic and cohesive. So that's going to wrap it up for these tutorials. If you guys have any questions, of course, email us, and we will be going over this stuff in lab as well, so you guys can ask questions during that time.